Honorable Breitenbach.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and good morning to everybody. Good morning to the Minister and the Deputy Minister. Minister, thank you for coming to the committee. I'm sure it has not been easy. I've been there, I've done that, I've got the T-shirt. I know that it's not easy. So thank you for coming. You also, I know, understand that this committee, and I speak for myself and my colleagues, but I'm sure I speak for all the members of the committee, we're doing a job that we have to do. We have oversight. This is in the public interest, and you'll understand that there's no personal animus here. So I have a number of questions. I'll try to limit myself so that everybody else can also have a chance, but frankly, I could keep you busy for the rest of the day, but I'll try not to. My first question, Minister, is as the Mayor of Polokwane, what was your involvement in making investments? I understand that there's a structure there, there's a municipal manager, there's people who do the finances and make decisions, but as the Mayor, the buck stops with you really for everything, and so how involved were you and how much did you know about investments in general, and in this one in particular? Mr. Chair, I think it might be useful if we get answers to questions as we ask them, as opposed to asking 2 or 3 or 4 and waiting for answers, because the answers may erase other questions.
That will take us the whole day, Honorable Breitenbach. I get the spirit, but let's ask. They are going to note and they are going to respond to.
I think it's less effective, but anyhow. Then, bearing in mind that you're the Mayor and that you have the buck stops with you, I'm making the assumption that you then know quite a lot about what goes on in the municipality, that you make it your job to understand what's happening, and more particularly with the finances. It's important. And so you would have known about this, this investment at VBS. And my question is really this. VBS is not a normal bank, it's a mutual bank, or was a mutual bank, in which municipalities were not authorized to invest. And you do, in your statement, make mention of other investments, Standard Bank, Nedbank, ABSA, Investec. Those are proper banks, not a mutual bank. And you were not entitled as the municipality to make investments in a mutual bank. So the investment itself is unlawful. You also say that Ganda Wealth Solutions is not a typical contractor in the strict sense of the word, in that the municipality did not pay them for their services rendered. Well, that may or may not be so, I don't know. I accept what you're telling me. What is clear from the analysis of the money is that they were certainly richly remunerated by VBS for garnering investments and made a vast amount of money for doing very little, also paid huge kickbacks, and that's not in dispute. Huge kickbacks to the people who made the investments. So the whole scheme was a cynical, sick and dodgy scheme to defraud the poorest of the poor people, particularly in Limpopo, and is unconscionable. So Ganda is not a charitable organization that does things because of their love of advancing the cause of South Africans. They did it to make dodgy money, and they made dodgy money, and lots of it. Now, it's the dodgy money that's the problem, because all of their money was dodgy money, and you were the recipient of some of that dodgy money. So, you know, my question to you is, why do you say that because they were not paid, they were not a typical contractor? Of course they were. They were just paid elsewhere. And that being the position then, Why did you seek personal financial advice from an entity that was in fact doing business with the municipality of which you were the mayor? The head honcho, the top of the pyramid, where the buck stopped with you, and they knew it. So of course they'd be happy to accommodate you because we've seen what kind of investments were being made for them and the benefits that they accrued from those investments. So there is a conflict of interest. And my question is, why did you not see it? Why did you approach them for advice? They're also styled as Gando Wealth Solutions, Gando Wealth Management. Who knows what they were and what they did. But what they were not was a registered service provider or a registered financial services provider. And so they were, in fact, not able to just give loans in the normal course of their business. It wasn't the normal course of their business. In fact, very few loans were made. Lots of kickbacks were paid. All of the stolen money was, dissipated. Very few loans were made. Yours was one of the very few. So why would you have negotiated a loan with an entity doing business with your municipality who was not a registered financial services provider? And did you, at any stage, attempt to get an arm's length, proper, ordinary commercial loan from a bank? Your own bank, wherever you banked. Sure, you would have been able to get a loan from your own bank. So why did you get a loan from them? What was so attractive about doing business with Gando, particularly bearing in mind the extortionate, really extortionate, if your figures are correct in paragraph 27 of your statement, of the interest. On a loan of 575,600, you paid interest of 274,399. That's practically 50%. And in fact, it works out to 47%. 47% interest on a loan that, in the bigger scheme of things, is not even huge. Why would you enter into such a one-sided transaction when you could have gone to a real bank and gotten a real loan at a real interest rate? It makes no commercial sense whatsoever, none. And so it makes the whole transaction, forgive me, look exceptionally suspicious. Also, the timing thereof is exceptionally suspicious. Money flows from the municipality to VBS, money flows from VBS to Gando, money flows from Gando to the purchase of the coffee shop, all in the space of a very short period of time. It may be a coincidence, but in a long time of operating in the criminal justice system, I've learned to be very suspicious of a confluence of coincidences. And normally, they point to trouble. And I see no reason to have less suspicion about this entire matter. So if you could help me with that. I'm also then interested in the name of the investment group, T5 Investment Group. Where did the name come from? Was it a shelf company? And if not, what does the T5 stand for? Your name is Tembi. Is it related to you somehow? Have you got 5 investment companies? Is that what the 5 is for? I would be interested to know more about the name. Then I'll move off of that subject because I'm sure that my colleagues have questions and will cover it, but I must deal with the glaring current conflict of interest that certainly exists, whether you want to see it or not, Minister, with respect. That certainly exists between yourself and the National Prosecuting Authority. We all remember, some of us more painfully than others, the demise of Mr. or Advocate Vusi Pikoli as the National Director of Public Prosecutions when Jackie Selebi was prosecuted, and he wouldn't back down. He was instructed to not proceed with the prosecution by the Minister of Justice. He refused to do that because Vusi Pikoli is an honorable man. And he lost his job because of it, much to the absolute destruction of the NPA. Because what happened at the NPA after Mr. Pikoli left could not have happened while he was there. And I think we all know that, and I think you know that too. And he was fired then because there was the supposed breakdown of a relationship between himself and the Justice Minister, who at the time was Minister, I think, Mabandla. Now, if it is so as you want us to believe here, that there's absolutely no possibility of a Justice Minister having any influence over the NPA, and I agree with you, there should be no such influence, and the NPA should tolerate no such influence, none. It's a non-thing, it should never be allowed, but we live in the real world, and we've seen this happen. And so it's not true that the Justice Minister does not have influence over the NPA, even if it's a very subtle influence. Of course you do. And how you choose to exercise it is, of course, up to the Justice Minister. And I've not got any reason to suggest that you've done anything untoward in that regard, and I'm not suggesting it. But perceptions, Minister, are everything. And the public and myself see the justice system as a pyramid. And there's the police, and there's the NPA, and there's the Department of Justice, and then there's you. And you sit at the top of that pyramid. And that's inescapable. It's an ineluctable conclusion that you cannot sit on top of the pyramid while a matter such as this is being investigated. Because it is being investigated. As we read this morning in the papers, the Hawks have executed search and seizure warrants in Polokwane on the office that you occupied. And they're clearly investigating, amongst other things, this transaction. And so there's an inescapable problem there. And there is a conflict of interest. And it doesn't matter how honorably you conduct yourself. It matters that perceptions are everything. And my perception, and I'm sure the perception of the public at large, is that you cannot continue to sit on the top of this pyramid while this matter is pending. So I'd like your view on that. It is a fact. And again, I want to stress this is not personal. It is a fact. It is a perception. It can't be thought away. It doesn't matter how honorably you conduct yourself. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Advocate Bredenbach. Honorable Dana.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to
Chair.
everyone. Excuse me, Chair.
Sorry, Honorable Dana. Honorable Mfalo. What is that?
No, thank you very much, Chair. Chair, I'm not sure with the modus operandi that you've espoused in running this inquiry. I don't think it will be fair to...
First of all, Mr. Nomvalo, this is not an inquiry.
Okay, whatever it is. But I'm saying I don't think it will be fair to ask many questions. I think there must be a limit, Chair, that two speakers must ask or one speaker must ask, and then we allow the minister to respond.
No problem. What we'll do, we'll group you as the first round and the second round. So we're going to take those who raise their hands late as a second round. Is that fine?
But if you can wait for me to finish, Chair.
Okay. Finish.
The point that I'm making, Chair, is that the honorable member that has asked questions, she has asked many questions. I think about 10 questions she has asked with many propositions. And maybe from her primary questions, there might be follow-up questions, maybe from another speaker. So I don't think that it is rational to allow many people to ask questions without dealing or responding to the first questions first. So, Chair, my advice to you is that let the minister respond to the questions asked to her first before you allow a second person to answer. To ask questions.
No,
Because
Mr. Nomvalo, you are going to drag us to a kind of a one-on-one kind of questioning. I think it was fine when you said at least to let the speakers not be many, so that we allow the minister to respond to the first batch of questions, then we take a second round. Everyone who wants to ask is going to be allowed that chance to ask. So what I will do now, I will take Honorable Dana, I will take Honorable Trolip and Honorable Swart, then allow the minister to respond. Then come back to Honorable Tsotetsi, Mutaung, Klopa, and Ngaba as a second round. So I think it will be fair if we do it like that, so that we avoid having a question to question. Of course, if there are follow-ups, they are going to be allowed after responses. Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, Chair, and I apologize for doing this to you and to the meeting. I don't want to question your judgment, but initially I was going to support the first proposal that you have made. But my intervention, Chair, it's mainly on the fact that we are sitting in many meetings. Myself, I'm debating in another mini plenary, and I was hoping that by the time that my slot comes up, I would have asked questions, and the approach that we would have taken could have assisted in that regard. So my request is it possible that you allow me or give me preference, unless if there are others that are going to debate, that I come in, and should I be called in another meeting, I can excuse myself. I apologize, Chair. That is my only plea.
Fine, then we'll take you after Mr. Swart. Honorable Dana, proceed.
Thank you, Chair, and good morning to everyone. Good morning, Minister, and thank you for appearing here in front of us today. I must echo my colleague, Honourable Breitenbach, in saying that there's no animosity. This is a fact-finding mission as part of our very important oversight responsibility. Minister, I have 6 questions. My first question is, and thank you for your report, but I don't see that the loan agreement with Gondo Wealth Solutions has been provided. So I'd like to know, is this loan agreement available? Can we have a copy of this loan agreement? Has it been given to the President or anyone else? We'd like to see this loan agreement, Minister. And then you also mentioned in your report that you spoke to Gondo Wealth Solutions and gained financial advice from them. They, for instance, advised you that you should not take from your pension fund to invest in the coffee shop. But I'd like to know, Minister, why would you take financial advice from an institution that is not a registered financial credit provider, and also then proceed to take a loan from them with an interest rate of nearly 50%? It does not sound to me like a good financial decision after you've gotten financial advice from this institution. So I'd just like to understand your thinking around that. And then, Minister, I'd like to know, was the entire purchase price, because I can't see it in any of the information that we received or any of the media reports, what was the entire purchase price of the coffee shop? Was it only 500,000 Rand? I struggle to believe that a coffee shop in Sandton would cost only 500,000 Rand. And if it was more than 500,000 Rand, how did you finance the balance of the purchase price of the coffee shop? You mentioned in your report that the appointment of Gondo was approved by a council resolution with the reference number there, MC 13304/2016. Did the council question the appointment of an investment advisor to the municipality regarding millions of rands working for free? Because we all learn in life that nothing is free, and yet this investment solution company was appointed with no fee structure, apparently working for free. So did you find that suspicious? Did anyone question it? Did anyone say something about that? And you also mentioned in your report that you had nothing to do with the investment committee. It was under the purview of the municipal manager, and the municipal manager and the investment committee made the decisions according to the procedure to invest with VBS Bank. And yet you mentioned now, with your opening address, that you gave the order to disinvest with VBS. So if you had nothing to do with the investment committee, was that within your powers to give the order to disinvest? And was it only based on the circular that was sent by Treasury regarding VBS, or was it based on any other decision? And then lastly, Minister, for this round, I'd just like to know, did you ever declare your dealings with VBS Mutual Bank in your official declarations of interest? To the President, maybe after you became Minister, did you say anything? You said you sat with the Minister, you told him about another pending case regarding your sister that was now in court. Did you declare or disclose the fact that you took a loan from VBS? Because as you know, as we've seen in the media as well, anyone, whether it be above board or not, and as my colleague said, nothing with regards to VBS is actually above board because they were dishing out money that was in effect stolen from pensioners and people who actually needed it. So you must have known that anyone, any person that had dealings with VBS would be tainted. So I'd like to know if you ever at any stage declared that you did take a loan from VBS and what the dealings was with regards to that. Thank you, Chair. That's my questions for now.
Thank you, Honourable Trollip.
Thank you, Chair. You'll excuse me if I overlap a little bit, but I think it's bound to happen. First of all, just for clarity, when the Minister does answer, will she be answering under oath? Just for the record. And I note that the Minister was a councillor for many years. She was the Deputy President and the President of SALGA. She was the Mayor from 2014 to 2021. She understands the MFMA, the PFMA. She even told us that she studied further for an additional 2 years. So that all helps for context. To say there are no fees payable by the municipality might be technically correct, but we know that there was 24.2 million rand in commission paid by VBS to Gundo Investments, and those commissions were lost to the bank. So there was a significant loss of public funding. And if you understand the MFMA and the PFMA, why did you not use the municipality's bank? You said Standard Bank was their bank. Why was the money not invested in Standard Bank? There's no denial that the 349 million rand was invested in VBS, so we assume that you accept that that was done. I would like to know if there is a loan agreement and that we could be furnished with that loan agreement and what the repayment terms were in that loan agreement. Because as my colleagues have said, 45% plus interest on the capital loan is exorbitant, and I would not understand why a financial advisor would advise you to do that. My next question is, did you declare the loan when you were the mayor of Polokwane to the municipality? Because you were a public office bearer. Did you declare it when you were a minister in the previous administration, in your member's declaration? And did you declare ownership of the coffee shop and bistro in that declaration? Did you declare the loans and ownership of the coffee shop to the BDO investigation in 2018, 2019, because there appears to be no reference to that, and BDO questioned you around the investments? You also say that as the mayor, you instructed the municipality to withdraw the VBS investment 2 months before Treasury's instruction, yet you claim to have no investment responsibility as the mayor. Gundo Financial Solutions or Wealth Management is not a financial services provider. So therefore, why were you approaching them for a loan if they aren't an FSP? And then the source of income to make the 3 payments of 283,000 rand on 3 occasions. What was the source of income? If you weren't able to finance the purchase of the coffee shop, how were you able to finance that amount of money over a relatively short period of time? just over a year. And then I want to ascertain relevance to the following. You said, I informed Gundo that I would withhold payments until the investment was concluded. On the 9th of October, the day I made the first payment, I received the report from Polokwane Treasury after I had participated fully, and then I made the first payment. What is the relevance of that? Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Trolep. You'll recall that as members of Parliament, we take oath, all of us, and all members of the executive are made to take oath or affirmation. So that is the oath we operate with until the end of the term.
Thank you.
The executive is not required to take oath when appearing before the committee. Honorable Swart.
Thank you, Chair. I think the point you've just made is important because you indicated earlier this is not an inquiry. Should we be having an oversight inquiry like we've done in the past, such as the Eskom inquiry, where witnesses were put under oath for the specific evidence that they were leading at that time? But obviously, the point you make is correct, that the Minister is fully aware of what she indicates could respond, whether she's misleading Parliament. I think that's the point. She's fully aware that she's not under oath for this purpose, but she's exercising response to our oversight function. So I appreciate the clarity that you received in that regard. Chairperson, just from my side, I'd like to start with the NPA Act in particular, and given the questions that have been put to the Minister and given her explanation, I would just like to read to her Section 33 of the Act, National Prosecuting Act. The Minister shall, for the purposes of Section 179 of the Constitution, this Act or any other law, exercise final responsibility over the prosecuting authority in accordance with the provisions of this Act. Now, then it goes number 2, Section 2, enabled to exercise your responsibility, the National Director shall, that is obligatory, at the request of the Minister, furnish the Minister with information or a report regarding any case, matter or subject dealt with by the National Director in the exercise of their power. And it goes on in subsections, provide the Minister with reasons for any decision, furnish the Minister with information regard to prosecution, policy directives, etc. So I think, through your Chair, Honourable Minister, it's very clear that you have substantial powers in terms of that Act. And I think that is the concern that the Honourable Breitenbach raised. We're not saying that there will be any intervention, but given the allegations and given the investigation into VBS and the large numbers of prosecutions, and now given what you have indicated to ourselves, and given the fact that Hawks are today further investigating, there is, in my view, a glaring conflict of interest. We're not saying that you will abuse your powers, but we will say that the possibility exists given what has happened in the past and given the powers that you have. And that having been said, would it not be wise at this stage to consider, I'm not saying standing down or anything, but just how does one deal with that possible conflict of interest? You've denied that there is, but I think one sets out a very strong legal case that there can be, and given what has happened in the past. And I think that is a huge concern, not only to us, but people that are watching this in the public, the media, given the closeness of the investigation of VBS, the prosecution, and now the many questions that arise from this loan. So allow me then, if you'd respond to that, I'd appreciate that. Allow me then just to deal with the loan, and many questions have been asked, and we would appreciate it if it is possible for you to provide us with a copy of the loan agreement. Again, my colleagues have indicated it doesn't seem to make commercial sense to have entered that loan agreement, and you indicated, and the question was put to you, why didn't you approach a normal commercial bank? And I would put it to you that the reason might be that you would probably not have got the repayment terms with a normal commercial bank, in as much as if we understand what you said, the repayment would only take place at the end of the enterprise, which was some 4 years later. If you entered the agreement in 2016, the payments were only made 4 years later, and I'm sure that no commercial entity would have entered to that. So then the question arises, why were you given such a preferential loan agreement? And I suppose the answer was the very high interest rate. But could you please comment, Honourable Minister, on the fact that 2016 the agreement was entered into, you had, and one hopes that if you supply us a copy of that agreement, it will say that the repayment only had to be made at some time in the future, which is suspicious. But on the 9th of October, the very day you received the report, that is a massive red flag. If I heard you correctly, the very day you received the report about the inquiry, that is the day you made the first payment. Was it not as a result of the report that you made that payment? The next payment is then very suddenly made on the 12th of November 2020, and then on the 7th of January 2021, in the total amount of 849. It could seem that it was as a result of the report and the fact that it was now a hard-hitting report impacting many, many people that the repayments were suddenly made. And I'd ask you to comment on those, because it does seem beyond coincidental that the same day you receive the report is the day that you make the payment. And if that is not the case, then why were payments not made before that date? That's all the questions from my side. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Trollip. Honorable Matafa.
Thank you very much, Chair, and much appreciation for allowing me to have a bite at the presentation at this stage. Let me start by greeting the Minister, the DM, the DG from the department, members and guests. Chair, let me join Honorable Breitenbach in appreciating the willingness by the Minister to subject herself to scrutiny by the Portfolio Committee. For us, this demonstrates your commendable commitment to transparency, accountability, and the highest standard of leadership. We truly appreciate that. But Chair, I think that the intention of today, well, according to me, does not seek to reopen investigations already concluded, because we have it on record that reports have been provided even to the Prudential Authority, which is the South African Reserve Bank. Then I'll further implore the committee not to turn this session into an inquiry akin to a Section 194 inquiry. It is also established, Chair, that the Hawks are still seized with the investigation processes around the areas that require such to happen. So in my engagement, I'm going to limit myself to what I think is the primary question that we seek to address. And that, Chair, is also found in your introduction. Given where the Minister is currently, maybe the question might be, is she fit to be in that office where she might be required to investigate or take decisions around those investigations that apply to people that can be deemed to have an inappropriate relationship with her? So my first question would be directly to the Minister, Chair, through you. Minister, can you assure this committee that should matters involving VBS land on your table, you will respond to them impartially, in a manner that does not compromise the investigation, in a manner that does not seek to suggest that you may be influenced to take decisions that a person who doesn't have any relationship with those that are being investigated wouldn't? The second question that I had, Chair, was initially asked by Honorable Dana, and Honorable Swart spoke to that. On the loan agreement, I think that wherever there's a loan agreement or a credit agreement, there will be paperwork. And I agree with them, maybe if such paperwork exists, it could be important that the committee is benefited with that document. However, Chair, I'm saying this with the full understanding that the National Credit Act also emphasizes the need to protect credit loan agreements with some level of confidentiality. So I would think that should that be the agreement of the committee, you will assist us in terms of if whether are we viewing the documentation in camera, or how then do we ensure that they are circulated, but equally they do not compromise that very important act by the National Credit Act. Chair, Honorable Swart also speaks about Section 33 of the NPA Act. Even though I know that I have asked the minister if whether will she be able to act impartially, I think Section 179 of the Constitution also stipulates that an act must be legislated to ensure that the prosecuting authority exercises its functions without fear, favor, or prejudice. And that is elucidated more in Section 32, where the impartiality and the oath that members in the prosecuting authority must take. And one of the sentences in that oath says, a member of the prosecuting authority shall serve impartially and exercise, carry out or perform his or powers, duties and functions in good faith and without fear, favor, or prejudice, and subject only to the Constitution and the law. So having asked that question, I just wanted to say, maybe also let us not cast a aspersion around the NPA that it is easily influenced. It can't be our view by the committee, because that also can reflect on what, as parliamentarians, we think about the institutions that are supposed to be independent. Last question, Chair. Maybe it will be prudent for the minister to indicate, since assuming office, has a report around the investigation around the VBS matter been presented to her? Has she seen sight of such? And if you have, Minister, can you just indicate for us that you did deal with it in compliance with high ethical standard? Coupled to that is an intention from the minister to fast-track those particular investigations and ensure that justice is served, as we have seen that some have been prosecuted and sentenced, so that the matter is brought to conclusion. Thank you very much, Chair. Those are my questions.
Thank you very much, honorable members. That concludes the first round of questions. We'll then allow the minister to respond. You can respond from that seat to all the questions.
Thank you very much, Honorable Chair and honorable members, for the questions and engagement.
Take the mic close to you.
Okay. I'm used to standing when you are addressing at the House. It's not normal to sit. Thank you. Chair, it's quite a bit of questions, and some were relatively the same, so I'll club them together without really going through one. I was packing them as honorable members were making questions. The involvement in making investments. Councillors do not participate in supply chain management. The process that was engaged by Polokwane municipality was ran by officials. No involvement of the mayor. They advertise, they get responsible for, the MM gets responsible for the appointment of committees, that will be the bid evaluation, bid adjudication, appoint. After appointment, Section 52 of the MFMA says all contracts, not one, all contracts that the MM would have entered into at a particular quarter must all be reported to council. So the report was not a VBS report per se, for starters. So what you do, you report all of them. If there are 20 in that quarter, you will report 20 of them, you put them in the table. Contract one was related to water, awarded to contractor so-and-so at this value, starting time or date or whatever, etc. That's where the contract management plan of council comes from and gets to be updated all the time. So there is no involvement of the mayor or any councillor. So there's no councillor, even if it's a MMC of finance, who will sit in the process of the appointment of any service provider. Gundu was not a service provider of the municipality. If you look into the definition of national treasury and the FMMA, it states clearly that a service provider provides a service, gets remunerated or paid by council or government for that. Hence, the bid is called unsolicited. I'll make another example, which happens mostly in municipalities. It happens even in SARS now, where a company gets to be appointed to collect rates and taxes, the debt, on behalf of the municipality. That contractor does not get money every month on the basis that he has called 100 people. No. It's an unsolicited bid where you get a particular portion as agreed in terms of percentage, how much you have brought back. Let's say you have collected 100 rand and the contract says you get 2%, you will get 2% of the collected 100 rand. It's the same as the broker fee. As you get business, it is on the basis of the percentage that you have agreed upon on the broker fee that you get paid. So not the exact typical definition of a service provider. And my view really still is they were not a strictly service provider as you define them, but they were providing a service, yes, to the municipality, not at the cost of council. So they are the ones, for example, in this instance, the committee and the finance office will look into the funds of the municipality and say, we have got a surplus fund of 2 million and we want to invest it. And then he will go out, get quotations on the basis of the interest rate, come present, and they make their own decision. We only get to be informed as council through Section 52 at the end of the quarter on all what would have transpired. In any, whether it's a water project or it's a road project, it gets to be included in Section 52. My understanding, which still is my understanding, was that Gundu is a registered financial service provider. Yes, they might have not, as I get to know later, that they were not accredited with the national credit regulation. My understanding also, on another hand, I've requested quite a number of times, either from my brother or anybody, can you loan me money? It does not necessarily have to be on the basis of a registration. Maybe loan is not the right word in the example that I'm making, but I'm saying I can ask you, Honorable Trollip, and ask, can you borrow me money on Friday? And you say yes, and on Thursday you kill your mom, you give me the money on Friday, the following week I get to know the money you gave me comes from an act that would have been. I loaned from Gundu, not from VBS. I loaned from Gundu. My contract is with Gundu, not with VBS. So that's where the distinction is. And I regret the harm it has caused the people of a vendor in particular, because mostly the beneficiaries of the bank and the depositors were coming from vendor. I'm not saying it's an action where if I look back on hindsight, I don't think one should have done things differently. No, hindsight is bedside. One would have done things differently, but I had no knowledge of the mechanics of the bank inside. The reason why I made a withdrawal, or I requested for a withdrawal, almost all the investments that were made, even the ones of Standard Bank, were made under the acting municipal manager. A municipal manager was appointed on the 1st of May of the July month where the withdrawal was made. So he gets appointed on the 1st of May. He starts doing rounds. He comes to report to me on our monthly Monday meetings. He says, one worry I have picked up is the investment. Not the other Liberty or whatever. Well, of course, they were also having a very nominal return, which was another issue that he raised on the other investments. I'm going to check if they are a commercial bank. He returns, I think 2 days or 3 days after that, he says, I've made the verification, they are not a commercial bank. He writes to withdraw the funds from VBS on maturity. Maybe it may also be prudent to explain to members that the amount was not necessarily that it was 349 taken in 1 day invested. It was a 6 months short-term investment. You take the interest and sometimes return it at the same amount or in other different amounts. So the committee never sat in one time and decided to invest in VBS alone. How did I get to know that it was during the investigation? Because I did not have, as a councillor, the innings of, but they will have 200, give 50 there, give 20 there, give, and then reconvene again and do that. So ultimately, it became 300 and something for VBS. Even when you calculate for Nedbank, Liberty, and whatever, it was at the range of around 300. Not that that justifies the question. So when I'm saying, the investment, when I'm saying I then said to the MM, withdraw it, it was because it's a joint decision which we took before a council sitting. Right? We will then inform council. Otherwise, why would I have an expert appointed by council 2 months before, started in May, withdrew the money in July? Then I don't take his advice. In fact, if you look into the BDO report, not that every remedial action that is done, you will like it. Shame he's cited there. Because BDO said, you shouldn't even have waited for that 2 months. You should have withdrew it with immediate effect. You nearly lost. But in my view, you withdraw before time, you would have lost the interest of council. But he's part of the people who transgressed the official. So the CFO, the deputy CFO, he was 2 months on the job, as I say, when he initiated the investment. So it's not that Gundu reported to me and then I said, withdraw. No. It was on the advice of a municipal manager who had just started 2 months. The interest, funny, even when we were looking at the transaction ultimately at the end. Honorable Trotty, if someone gives you money and you do not pay in a for about 3 years. As I said in my engagement, that Sylvanas only registered 3 years after that, being carried by a company under T5, which is also called Golden Threads, which was doing consultancy work, mostly in social facilitation, and a T5, which also had an interest, an investment group, which was also doing work mostly in the construction, and which my brother was running. So I think that is the essence. Honorable Glenis Breitenbach, T5. My mom comes from a family of 5. And I don't know, by coincidence, all of them had girls whose names start with T's. There are 2 Tembis, myself and my elder sister Tembi. There's Tabiso, there's Tabane, and then there's Tutu. So we actually call ourselves something that I wouldn't mention in an official house, as a group of girls coming from that. And it's a relationship I value because I never had an older sister. All of them are older than I am. When you talk to them, they will tell you how foolish I have been growing up. So that's where the name comes from. And I'm glad you noticed that it's not a normal, yeah. So it comes from a collection of sisters who have traversed life together. I attempted alone, as I indicated, that upon resignation from public service, I withdrew my pensions. I placed them with FNB. They placed them under Alan Gray, whatever they are called, but the Alan Gray Fund. The costs were as exorbitant as this cost. It was at that level. I actually even went some of my little minor savings that one does on a monthly basis, hope you die soon or whatever. I even went to Old Mutual where I had some. I inquired. It was not affordable for me at the time, and I wanted the venture. The payment in 4 years, I think I had explained it, that, and that's what makes the interest rate to be equal. But funny, even if you can go today, take that money, which I've done also, again, to check and correct and see if whether was there anything really that one I didn't look into. It came at about 2 points down from a calculation of a financial investment, which is a bank. The money that I took, the time I took, I kept with, and the period that I paid it back. Now, when I registered Sylvanas, I was almost getting ready to start with the payments, the repayments. It takes me into what Honorable Danas asked about the overall amount, and I'll cover it now. The repayment, let me start it this way. When I was getting ready, then there were calls from National Treasury. In fact, their email, to be specific, was instructive withdraw, which came later after we had already withdrawn or made a notice to withdraw. It was in August, the money came in September. That's the time of the registration of Sylvanas, getting ready. Now it's an entity. It took about 3.5 years to build the entity to be able to stand on its own and have its own bank account. Otherwise, it has been trading under T5. Actually being subsidized to a large extent by what my brother was doing and the work that I was doing at Golden Threads at the time. Declarations. Declarations were made at the municipality. The declarations are not structured the way honorable members are asking, unfortunately. In fact, when I did my first declaration here in Parliament, I saw a huge distinction between a declaration that is made in council and a declaration that is made in Parliament. The declaration at the municipality, in fact, by the way, they should be appearing on the annual reports. So which means honorable members can go into the website. Obviously, you will not get the package of the declaration. You will get a summary, and it depends on how they summarize it. And sometimes AG finds a question, they are never really updated. But every councillor is supposed to declare, and it will write what have you declared. Some instances value, some instances they wouldn't calculate and all that. But coming into the National Assembly, I did declare the business. At the time, the loan was long repaid. So, Honorable Trollip, to be exact, in council, the businesses were declared, not the loan. There is no declaration that asks for a loan. AG did try, I think, in 3 or 4 years ago to jointly with National Treasury to issue a sample of what municipalities must do in declarations. Honorable Trollip, I would like to make a correction, which I think is not only from what is written that I'm an old councillor. No, I've only been 8 years in council. He was my DM, by the way, he knows. When I walked into Polokwane municipality, my first relationship with the municipality was me paying a bill and nothing else. I had no knowledge of local government. The least that I've tried to do was out of the own effort of reading the ordinances and the acts ultimately into shaping what my peers recognized then. So when I was president of SALGA, or rather deputy president of SALGA, or the chairperson in the province, I must have been a councillor for 2 years or so. To be exact, I did not start even the term of mayorship in 2011. I became a mayor at the resignation of a mayor who resigned in April or so of 2014, and I became a mayor in 2014 for 2 years. And that is the explanation that I'm giving, that you are resigning on the other side, but it does not give you necessarily a full guarantee that you will have another term to do any work as a public office bearer. Rather look for other alternatives. So there's nothing wrong with the timing in terms of the payment. I do believe, and I still do, it would have been very wrong for me then and now, when you are notified that there's an investigation taking place, you are supposed to appear, and then you quickly start making payments. I just thought it will, because I had a period of about 3 years as in agreement, not servicing that until the company was fully registered in 2019, and the bank unfortunately collapsed in the beginning of 2020. So the entire purchase price, Honorable Dele, from the part of Recovet that one had to advance from the other side was 232, which means it was 8 something. You will put the 565 and the 232, which was the amount that the 565 didn't cover. So even Gundo did not have the entire amount that I was initially requesting. And Recovet, hence I explained that the first payment in terms of servicing the coffee shop, I had to start with Recovet, which was also having a shortage of about 200. I think I've covered, and I'll go to the area of the conflicts. The question also which spoke about the Standard Bank repayment. I'm not sure if the honorable member Trollip understood me very well, or maybe I misunderstood the question, which is also possible. The municipal bank was Standard Bank. I've never banked in Standard Bank. I've never made payments to Standard Bank. The point I was raising about the investigation was that if you have looked into that chapter 13, there was a portion which was saying recoveries, recover money lost, blah, 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 or civil recovery. That's why I said we then went back with National Treasury and Provincial Treasury to Standard Bank, which is the municipal banker. Them looking exactly as to whether did the money that has been paid back reach the municipal bank account, and it did. And the only transgressions that remain were for the officials and the executive mayor. In that I contravened Section 52 of the MFMA, and I was sanctioned with the University of Pretoria, as I have. Now, I want to go to the issue of conflict of interest and the direct relationship that the Act, or rather the NPA Act, gives to the minister. I also want to look into the fact that because it has happened in history, it guarantees that it will happen futuristically, as if history has not been a teacher in what needs to happen, even in terms of government, or rather of parliament, playing its role with regard to oversight, which is what currently the committee is doing. And I think honorable members will agree that things have changed, for starters. Secondly, if there was still that naivety and arrogance, possibly this sitting might have been overlooked by an old minister who would have thought, I'm not accountable or responsive to the committee that is calling outside an inquiry but wants fairly an understanding, which is what led to the availing of the contracts and the proof of payments live to the report that has been made to the president, because the advice I got from a council was that I can display or make known and open such documents to the president, who you all know has requested the report and it has been finished. And those documents are there. But I'm not taking your time and your concern for granted, that I will come here, give you dates, name banks when the payment has not been made. I will never do that. I will never do that. The instruction to withdraw or the instruction to prosecute, even the Act says at the request. So the request of the minister. So the NPA will just not write. There will have to be a request. Now the test is sitting with honorable members here, availing myself to account, and still write a letter to NPA demanding this and that. I don't think that will be honorable. The Act is very clear. It doesn't say mandatory reporting. It says at the request. I have not made that request. I don't intend to make, even on my sister's case. You can actually even ask them, my first meet and greet with them, I gave them that commitment, that there is this case that you all know I'm sitting in. I will never, openly, not in a meeting of one, TM was there, all the executive of the NPA were there. I gave them that guarantee on day one, because that was the thought that I had in my mind, that they are not comfortable and they may be thinking This is the time I said, I commit myself in front of all of you, that area you will work as you always do, you will report as you always do. In this instance, and my word verbatim was, I'm part of you. Even on the TRC matter, we must jointly work together to find a solution. So VBS will not be different as a matter. I will not want to really engage more on the minister availing such. Suffice to say, Chair, I can engage with my council and see the possibility of bringing the documents to the committee, in committee possibly, and honorable members, if they feel strong that the mentioning of the payment, the mentioning of the contract is not sufficient, then I can respond to all those questions. I think I have touched on all, well, Honorable Matafa had asked the last question whether I have seen sight of a VBS report from the NPA. No, I've seen sight of no report, actually, not even about any other thing. Suffice to say that we met on a meet and greet. I actually have not even had an opportunity to work thoroughly on the issues in the department overall. I'm 2 months or so at work. Thank you.